This episode is brought to you by A3, a CMMC cloud-based collaborative environment for an organization seeking certification, otherwise known as an OSC, to build CMMC packages and share with a marketplace of consultant RPOs and assessor C3PAOs. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of 123 CMMC. My name is Dana Mantilia and I will be your host today. And my guest today is Eric Davidson, and he is with Aronson. So Eric, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your company?
I've been in IT for a little over 25 years, and I've kind of done some network security engineering, and I've kind of migrated into cybersecurity and got into the GRC space, helping companies with compliance, advisory services, and vCISO services as far as strategic guidance and how to meet their security needs, more or less.
Okay, and what kind of companies you work for? Big companies, small companies, local?
It's usually small companies or mid-sized companies, probably, I guess, somewhere between 50 and $500 million range. When I was with Coalfire, I did, bigger companies, but right now I'd probably say I specialize more in like the mid-sized companies right now.
Okay, and let me ask you a quick question. So when you go into a company initially, how do you feel that their overall cybersecurity position is when you first get there?
I think a lot of them know that they fall short, especially when it comes to, because a lot of these people don't have a huge IT budget. They only have somewhere between 3 and 4 IT people that are very operationally oriented, and they're not really too focused on the documentation side of things or anything to do with strategy, risk mitigation, risk management, all those things they know they pretty much fall short on. And that's why they usually do try to lean on, companies like ourselves to kind of provide some guidance and, give them some steps forward as far as becoming compliant or just trying to improve their general cybersecurity stance overall.
Okay, good. Give them a little roadmap. Yep. All right. So today we're going to talk about media protection. So question number 1 is, what is MP.1.118 and why is it important?
Well, the MP domain represents about 8 practices, or what some people know as controls, out of the CMMC. That there are 130 total, but MP.1.118 is the only level 1. So it's really generally considered basic, or what they call basic cyber hygiene. So it's one of those essential items. It'll comprise one of the 17 practices that'll make up a level 1. So the practice description of MP.1.118 from CMMC says sanitize or destroy information system media containing FCI, which is federal contract information. So this is information that's not necessarily public information. It's more sensitive than that, for disposal or release for reuse. So per NIST, the reference for disposal in a multitude of its publications from 37, 64, and 88 is a phase that is most sensitive to data exposure. Now, it may not be the most, typical way that it's exposed compared to, say, data in use or data in transit, but the disposal phase, or if you're familiar with SDLC, it's that part where it no longer has some of the defenses or some of those controls applied to it because it's in that data disposal part of its life cycle. So it's very prone, especially when you consider if devices or equipment are handed off to another group or an agency, or if they're donated. You can imagine some of the things that could be found out if a drive or something wasn't properly erased or overwritten or what have you, or maybe that drive just had to be taken out altogether if it was just hardware trying to be refurbished.
So specifically in there, it talks about media. So give us some specific examples of what does that mean, media, the term media?
Well, media in general can mean a lot of things. I think some people think in terms of it has to be something electronic, but it can be anything that holds data. So this can mean something simple as paper or storage devices like diskettes. These can be older devices too. They don't necessarily have to be brand new. Microfiche, tapes, thumb drives, DVDs, CDs, and even like old mobile devices. So anything that holds data is something that you can call media, or something that's storing that on some level. So if it's important to see what information is on those types of media, because if you think about all the information that could be considered FCI or contract type data, you can imagine all the places that it could be touching, anywhere from older cell phones, or recorded on media, or written on paper documents. So it's really quite expansive.
Yeah, and that's going to help too when you're trying to come up with your scope. Say, okay,
Yep.
What's out there as far as what's holding this, or what's written on what, or that kind of thing. And you're right, some of it might be old that you have to kind of take into consideration. Okay, so what is a reference that can be followed for sanitization?
Well, if people are looking for a good guide or a reference from NIST special publication, 800-88 has guidelines for media sanitization, but there's other NIST references that cover data disposal as well. And like I said, you can look at it from an RMF perspective, or others with like 37 or and 64. But this guide in particular will assist organizations and system owners or data owners in making those practical sanitization decisions based on the category of that data. So as long as they know it's FCI, then they know it's going to be applicable, or even if it's more sensitive CUI, which is part of that, they're going to want to apply those protections to that.
And then, so here's the ways of getting rid of it. So give us a couple examples of how people are doing this.
So the four general categories under disposal or part of disposal are going to be clearing, purging, and destroying. Now you have the physical destruction where you can some people have drill presses, hammers, or they have shredding devices that actually chew up the machine or the parts of the hardware or system that has that data on it. Degaussing, which uses high strength magnetic devices to pull the information off, because it basically takes off the magnetic capability where the data is stored. And then clearing, and there's overwriting, different ways to overwrite the actual ones and zeros, or just clearing that data altogether through different methods. But those are some of the ways that the media can be cleared, or cleared of any type of information that could be deemed sensitive, or at least at the FCI level.
And they might need some professional help with this, because some regular people that may not know exactly how to go about doing this. So my suggestion would be to talk to your IT person or somebody about how exactly to go about this, because you may think you're getting rid of it, but it may not.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of vendors out there that people can look up that do different types of destruction, sanitization. So you're definitely right on that one.
Okay. All right. So what should we do if storage media cannot be sanitized appropriately?
Well, in those situations, you can do removal or physical destruction, which we talked about earlier, which is more or less a last resort. Ideally, you want to be able to reuse it on some level, or there's some programs organizations like to use to refurbish certain things, or donate their some of their older resources to useful organizations. But if you're not sure, or you're not sure how to appropriately remove that, then the best option is just to completely destroy that part of the system that may hold the data. And like you said, if you're not aware of what part that is, then it is always useful to use a vendor or another resource to analyze that, because you may have some handoff to another group and they may not be aware of what actually is holding that FCI or more sensitive CUI information. So
yeah, and if you think back to way back in the day when everything was on paper, before we had computers. So you had filing cabinets. So you could keep track of your filing cabinets. If you physically could see them, you could see the big files of, whatever these filing cabinets are. And then you would know, okay, it's time to destroy this. You shred it, get rid of it, kind of thing. But this, now that they're stored all over the place in the cloud, in a device, like you said, on a diskette from a million years ago, microfiche, I think some people still are probably using microfiche. So it's definitely a much broader topic to kind of take a look at. And by looking at it, it also helps you, with your device inventories and your software inventories and, your data inventory. You're starting to figure out, okay, what is it stored on? What is it stored? And, and who has access to it. So it's a very good topic that we have. So what do we have for documentation requirements for CMMC level 1 and 3 when it comes to this?
Well, it really comes down to what level of certification that you're seeking. So this is a level 1 control, but if you're a level 3 or seeking to be a level 3 compliant organization with CMMC, there's going to have to be all the requisite documentation that's going to be pertinent to this effort. So it's still going to require, who is in charge, or who is, is going to be part of this operation. What are the media types? What type of budget is allocated towards this? What vendors might be, leveraged in this case? So those are some of the things that have to be clearly delineated within the documentation if it's a level 3 company. Now, if it's a level 1, and of course this is level 1 practice, they're not going to be held to that same level of rigor that a level 3 organization would. So, but best practices, you still want to have some type of procedure, some type of documentation that spells out clearly, hey, if should this be part of the disposal, or should this be deemed no longer part of our life cycle, and it's going to be, handed off or sitting in a warehouse somewhere. There should be some type of procedure to handle that. But of course, like I said before, if it's a level 1, they're not going to be held to that level of rigor that a level 3 organization would be.
Well, the one thing I do say about the level 1 people is that, when the assessors come in, they can interview other employees. So you have to make sure everybody is going to say the same thing. So you have to come up with some kind of a policy, and maybe the easier way would be to come up and put it in writing, so then you can all have a little meeting. This is our policy on how we are destroying data or devices or whatever the case may be. So I always like to remind people that when the assessor is now coming into your facility, they ask 5 different people, well, how do you destroy this once you're done with it? You get 5 different answers. That's not a good thing.
Yeah, it's always good to have a plan. Like I said, I tell some people, according to one, you don't have to, but if you're going to do it right, if you want to pass your assessment more easily, if you're a level 1 organization, it always helps to have as much documentation as possible.
Yep. That's for sure. Well, that was very, very helpful information. Is there anything else, Eric, you want to throw out there before we go?
No, not for this, but I definitely appreciate your time, and I enjoyed the conversation.
Well, and I appreciate all your knowledge. So thank you very, very much. And thank you, everybody, for watching. And we hope to see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you. Bye.
This episode of 123 CMMC has been brought to you by A3, an assessment accreditation application developed by CyberDI. A3 is a CMMC cloud-based collaborative environment for an organization seeking certification, OSC, to build CMMC packages and share with a marketplace of consultant, RPOs, and assessor C3PAOs.